Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be going through the build that we created for the Villainous Lair DreamSnaps submission. This week I wanted to utilize Ursula's items and Ursula in her Vanessa form because I recently got the Ursula Vanity and have never used it in a build before. And last time we did villains type of dream snap, back around I think October, maybe. I think I didn't utilize her. I actually went with Scar and got a pretty low score. I wasn't feeling the dark week anymore after doing so many dark themes, but I'm feeling it today. So I was looking around my valley for places to take the photo. I have Ursula set up in my Glade of Trust near my fairy biome that I created, or my fairy blossom house or area, but I just didn't like the brightness that it had. And it is a very small part of my Glade of Trust. I didn't devote a lot of space like this to her build. So I didn't want to use that. I went up to the Forest of Valor, not Forest of Valor, Forgotten Lands, where all my Halloween and dark kind of builds are at. My Dark Castle is up there. I have Jack's house, and I have the Nightmare Before Christmas house up there as well that we got from the premium shop. And I looked around different areas, was taking some snapshots and looking around, and I didn't like it either. I went inside a few of my homes that I have like Halloween dark type of vibes in and didn't like those rooms either. And then I was like, well, maybe I can come over to Eternity Isle. And I went to my lagoon where I have Ariel set up and was like, maybe I can replace Ariel's house with Ursula's house and make it a little more dark. But I didn't like that either. And while I was moving Ariel's house away from there to try to put Ursula's house in her space, I found this little spot over in the grasslands, which is near my Rapunzel build. I had to tear down kind of the stuff that I had over here. It wasn't much. And then I started to build from there. So I knew I wanted Ursula in my picture, so I had her with me the whole time so she didn't go to sleep. And then I put on the Ursula dress, the little necklace, these wings, put on the hairdo, and lots of purple. And then from there, I placed down the house and started to build from there. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that process came together to get this end result, and then I'll have my Dream Snap final submission at the end as well. Enjoy. I start with the house itself, positioning it where I think I want it, and then going in with a ton of water lilies. It's my favorite thing to do is to put water lilies in the water. And I have this similarly over in the Glade of Trust where I normally have Ursula's house, is just tons of water lilies near her house. I think it plays off of the entrance really nicely. So that is what I am doing now. And I mix in some of the reeds of grass as well to give some dimension. And since some are already built in also, along with the cattails. So I go ahead and position it how I think I want it. And then the two things that I know that I want to include in the build is her throne and the vanity. I also have the dream style from her as well. So I am going to include like the little trophy statue as well near her throne is what I'm thinking. And for the vanity, I'm using the little seat puff with the like tentacles on it as the seat for the vanity as well. And then I start including some different trees. So I know I want to play into the purple, so I use the two kind of three kind of purpley burgundy type of trees, and then fill in closer toward the middle with the trees that I don't know. Are these from the Forgotten Lands? I'm assuming that have no like flora on it whatsoever. They're barren trees and they look very creepy. So those are the trees that I'm going with to outline the build. I use the octopus table, the side table, to put the little statue on of the eels and start to go in with my next kind of idea is that I want her to have like a little place where she can do her potions. I start out with the like black bookshelves that are part of her theme, and then because I'm using that alchemy table, I switch to the alchemy bookcases in that area instead to tie it together. And I know I want to use a cauldron and the Well of Souls. My idea was to try to get the Well of Souls to have the green light shining up in my photo to make it look like the cauldron was being used. In the final photo, I didn't actually get that snapshot, but I'll show you what happened at that point. And then the next idea that I had is that Ursula is a deal maker. She is always making deals with people, so I wanted to have an area where she could have consultations. So I have two of these seats that are her themed. I have the side table in the middle and a snow globe, which I'm is saying is a crystal ball. And then the new Bell Dream style thing that came out had a projector. So I put one of those behind it to give some glow behind the snow globe because I thought it made it look more mystical. And then I put a pile of scrolls next to Ursula's chair, like those are her signed deals that she has contracted. And then I put a red carpet leading up to her house and some glowing fora. I'm not sure what those ones are called, and played around with the variation of how I wanted them lined up. But I wanted to draw focus to her house. And then I wanted to include obviously some of her other items. So I put the mirror. I put some of the a lamp from her as well, and I started filling in with things that logically made sense for her area. So I had books, the the runes, I guess, the stone partition. I don't know what it's called. And then I started to fill in with things that fit the DreamSnap criteria because up until now I've just been doing what I want. Now we're focusing on the tags after I have a good idea of what I want to do. So with the new update, I used the DreamSnap button, and at the top of the list is going to give you the things that most meet the criteria, and that's including the suggested. So I'm using the high tag items first to make sure that I get as much credit toward the tags as possible. And then after that, and the bigger items as well to try to have those in the background. And then after that, I started to look at the mandatory tags individually to try to find smaller items that I could fit in behind things. So I started with bigger items and items that had all the tags, and then went in with the mandatory tags separately to find littler things to kind of hide behind everything. And when I first started doing it, I thought I was going to use the Little Mermaid lamps that have the bubbles, the blue ones, all around. But then I remembered the thorny pillars that we have, and I wanted to take the lights out and put the pillars in it instead to give more of a dark look. And then what I did was kind of hide some lights behind it, some green to play off the well of the souls, and purple to play off of her obviously color in her house, to give some backlighting shine behind the pillars. And then I needed to figure out the angle of how I wanted things, so I spent a lot of time kind of maneuvering the like negotiation table to make sure it is not blocking the light from her house and you can still see her house, while also just making sure that I get the angle of everything correctly, that the pillars aren't blocking her potion area and all of that. So I end up moving her house slightly to the right to ensure that it's not blocked by the chairs in the front. And then I also am like constantly playing with the lighting. So I am trying to figure out what type of filter I want to use. I know I want to do this at nighttime for the glow factor, but I don't want it to be too dark. And I was really struggling on what filter I wanted to use this week. I'm usually not a fan of really dark photos because historically for me, they just don't do as well in the voting. But at the end of the day, I chose to go with my gut and pick the darker of the filters because I felt like it fit the theme better of being villainous. And it actually worked out because when I showed it to a friend, they're like, "Oh, it looks like a lair," and I'm like, that's what the theme was. So it really was on brand, I think, for the week. With that, I started doing my junking behind things, and also because I knew what angle I wanted to take the photo, I was able to junk more items around things because the angles wouldn't show the items, even though they were kind of in plain sight if you were to just walk into the build
It's almost
area.
like we stepped inside Bonnie's imagination.
And so yeah, that's what I'm doing now is just trying to figure out where to place all these little items to get as high tags as I can. Ursula, even though eventually I create a little blockade and block her in here and release her from hanging out with me, she sits down at the wrong chair, first of all, and I didn't want her blocking the view. And then from there, she was fixated. I don't know why the characters do this sometimes where they just fixate on an item and will not move or do any other animation away from that item. And what that was this week was a stack of books. She was fixated on it. So I had to move them toward the back and kind of position her where I wanted her to be based on her proximity to that pile of books. So she was pretty much in a fixed area. It wasn't what I wanted her to be doing, but it worked out. She was near the cauldron and her potion area in the photo, so it worked. And then this week I changed my companion to fit the theme. I went with dark, um, the dark squirrel. I don't know what its actual name is, but it's like purpley and smoky. And I know that when you use them with the smoky ones in particular, they leave a trail of smoke behind them. So I wanted to utilize that effect. And to do that, I went into the holding stance on the ground very quickly and snapped a photo immediately so that I still have that trail of smoke. So that's really what I'm going to lean into this week. Um, so right here, I'm still just doing finishing touches, messing with the lights, trying to figure out the filter. Um, After a while here, I am testing with the lighting and everything. I decide that I want to do like a circle of lights around me when I'm on the ground, so it looks like witchy vibes. And so I end up putting melted candles all around my character on the ground. Fill in the sparse areas with some grass to give it some visual interest so it's not just flat. And I was really conflicted. I really love the brightness of the photo with the specific filter I was using, but I decided not to, and I'm glad because later on we get the moon in our photo. It starts to come down and a cloud, and it just looks very ominous. And then we have the smoke from the little squirrel as well. I did feel like if I was gonna do a very dark photo that I needed to have lights around, so I started with these like I don't even know what they call them. They're like candelabras, but the really big ones. And then what you don't see is me putting 1,000 pillars as well around me to try to brighten it up as well. I think it did a good job because it was really dark on my character at first, and then at the end, I think it's the perfect amount of dark. So here I'm still trying to figure out what filter I want to use, and then this is just the perfect shot. The only thing that could have made it better is if the glow from behind the um, cauldron was glowing up, but the fact that I got the moon in this perfect position and that cloud, I had to go with it. And we got a really good smoke trail from behind our squirrel. And I'm very happy with the overall picture of this, and Ursula back there scheming with her cauldron. And this is my submission for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed it,